I recently rewatched Suits pilot and realized that the legal drama quickly dropped a major storyline that was promised. Released in 2011, Suits ran for 9 seasons, with some installments being significantly better than others. 6 years after the series concluded, Suits is perhaps more popular than ever. While Mike and Harvey were the glue that held Suits together, others in the series were also given ample time to shine. The show was filled with morally grey characters and nuanced villains who added complexity to the show's premise. However, there is a villain arc that Suits introduced in the first episode but eventually abandoned. Suits pilot set up Louis Litt to be the show's major villain. Rick Hoffman as Louis Litt looks stunned in a close display of his face. The introduction of Mike and his exceptional skills in Suits' first episode may have overshadowed the fact that we also met the show's potential big bad right at the start of the series. Suits' opening scene sees Louis being dismissed by Jessica, a trend that continued throughout most of the show. Being considered someone who would never be as good as Harvey perfectly set up Louis to be a major villain, which is something that Suits never really committed to after the pilot. Louis was clearly incredibly smart, and we could assume that he would one day find out the truth about Mike. While he was one of the firm's best lawyers, Louis was no match for Harvey, which could have created a fascinating villain dynamic. However, what cemented Louis as Suits' major villain is how he treated the junior associates he was in charge of overseeing. Louis' unsavory methods when it came to how he related to his employees and his feelings of inferiority also made for a great villain origin story. Unfortunately, nothing much came from it. Suits never committed to Louis being a villain after the pilot. Mike Ross looking at a portrait with Louis Litt behind him. Suits pilot proved that Louis had the potential to be the show's primary antagonist, seeing as his aggressiveness was on full display. However, after the first episode of the legal drama, that character arc was cut short. While disappointing, it does make sense that Suits didn't commit to that particular storyline. Louis wasn't necessarily a great guy, but he also wasn't outright evil. He never really planned to take over the firm or ruin Harvey's life. All he wanted was to be respected and be seen as one of the cool kids. If Louis did take on the role of the major villain in Suits, it would have, in a way, distracted from the show's main premise and made it darker. Suits was about Mike and Harvey. While it was essential that there were some people the duo had to fight against, that wasn't the point of the show, and Louis being the main antagonist would have complicated things, especially because of how he was later depicted. Louis proved several times that he could have been Suits' main villain. Meghan Markle as Rachel Zane, Rick Hoffman as Louis Litt, and Amy Acker as Esther Litt sit in their formal attire while looking at someone in Suits. Throughout Suits, Louis often oscillated between kindness and meanness. He showed countless times that he was capable of morally reprehensible acts. In Suits Season 4, when he made a deal with the devil and had to face the consequences, Louis' mean side came out, particularly after Jessica wouldn't let him keep his clients. When he discovered that Mike wasn't really a lawyer, he used that information to blackmail Jessica into not only giving him his job back, but also making him a name partner. The scene where Louis tells Donna that he has found out about Mike still gives me goosebumps. Louis figuring out Mike's secret could have served as a turning point for Suits, but that didn't really last long despite the bitterness he felt by being lied to and gaslit despite his instincts telling him that there was something not right about Harvey's protégé. While he got what he had always wanted, Louis was now enemy number one and became even more isolated in his job. This, in itself, should have meant that he would now try to take over the law firm from Jessica and Harvey. Instead, Louis forgave Mike, which was perhaps just too quick, considering that he could have gone the other way. What Louis did was far from right, but there is some nuance to his actions, given that he had dedicated his whole life to his job. Louis Litt still ended up being one of Suits' best characters. Rick Hoffman as Louis Litt standing in a doorway in Suits. While initially he was easy to dislike due to a number of reasons, he began to evolve as the show went on. Louis was one of Suits' best characters, even if he never became the villain that we were promised on episode 1. And yet the show sometimes struggled with what to do with him.